So that's where I'll take over for my presentation. My name is Chelsah Sigurdson, and yes, I'm from Alberta. My project is a solar social enterprise. So I've developed a small solar enterprise called Sol Invictus Solar. Sol Invictus means unconquered sun, and together with other solar organizations in central Alberta, we are intent on taking over the challenge of conquering the unconquerable. First of all, we are going to focus on solar PV solutions, small scale for rural and agricultural use, such as that solar-powered ground watering pump system for livestock, and eventually we'll move into solar PV for residential use. Our goal is to fit 33 wells per year at just under 16,000 kilograms of CO2 emissions saved each year, or at 50% our installed capacity, 16 residential PV systems, which will mitigate up to 125 metric tons of CO2 emissions equivalencies per year. So why this project? As you can see here, this is where Red Deer sits. Currently, we require, as a province, 7,000 megawatts of new power over the next few decades, and that's not including the decommissioning of our coal power plants. 85% of our coal power plants are to be decommissioned in the next coming decades, and we will need additional power to cover our electricity needs. We have the best solar resource in Canada. We have 333 sunny days in Alberta each year. And in Red Deer, we have only one competing solar business. The levelized cost of electricity in Alberta is at grid parity, which means it's pretty much the same as what you would be paying for conventional electricity prices. And our business intends on capturing a niche and an untapped market segment by catering to rural and agricultural customers, as well as being a social enterprise. In that as well, there was just a grant released by the Alberta government that provides a massive amount of funding for solar energy for rural application. Bear with me, I'm really nervous. So the social need in my area. Well, first of all, I wanted to capture the 3 E's of sustainability: socially equitable, environmentally sound, and economically feasible. We also found that there was an educational opportunity in central Alberta with regards to solar. We also want to support renewable energy industry so that our consumers can not only transition to solar, but if they can't fully, we can support local retailers that do generate renewable energy. Lastly, we want to be an equitable employer, and we are going to be the first for-profit solar social enterprise in Alberta. On a personal note, this is my view every day. I get to see these solar panels, maybe not so much the rainbows, but it's definitely motivation for this project. My business plan is the foundation of this project. So it includes market analysis, operational plan, financial analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunity, and threat analysis. I analyze the stakeholders' roles and responsibilities, with the primary stakeholders being myself, my partners, and Western. I conducted market research with potential clientele. I completed a carbon mitigation strategy, which the outcome of that is available on our website, which I'll touch on. We did prototype development, which I'll also touch on. We completed a vision strategy report, corporate social responsibility strategy platform, and at the end of this presentation, we'll go through some lessons learned. So this is my website. Feel free to check it out in your spare time. solinvictussolar.com. It provides easy to understand locally relevant solar information, which was a request by my clients when they did some market research. We provide information regarding solar solutions for rural application. We have our environmental and community goals as well stated on the website. We have a solar panel cost calculator, carbon calculator, links to grants and programs, and link to the solar scorecard, which sets the precedence for how we're going to choose what manufacturers we're going to support based on how ethical they produce their panels. This is myself at the World Choice Conference, educating youth on opportunities in the solar industry for employment, and an example of one of my educational brochures. So my carbon mitigation strategy. On our website, an individual can input how many kilowatt hours per year they use in electricity in their home. The average Alberta household uses 7,200 kilowatt hours per year. I calculated the amount of panels required based on the least amount of sunlight available per day, which is 2.3 hours in January. And the average Alberta household use just under 11 or they will require just under 11 kilowatts. So that's 4,451 panels each. As well, on the website, once you input, say, the average Alberta household, it will come out with just under 4,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalency emissions per year, which equals to 900 cars off the road for 1 year, or 350,000 trees planted and growing for 10 years. This will provide, I guess, motivation for a consumer over and above the economics of solar to transition into a cleaner energy source. I also did a case study that for my own location that determined how many emissions would be saved per year by implementing a solar-powered ground water pump. Now that can be used for both livestock watering or residential home use. This is a solar scorecard outcome of potential panel manufacturers will be using. So SunPower is obviously my top choice, very expensive, unfortunately. Kyocera is what is available through my distributor. They rank average for various reasons. And Hanwha, they rank very low, but because of my financial limitations with this project, we had to use Hanwha as our prototype. However, it's not something that we're going to actually be selling to our consumers because of their low ranking on the solar scorecard. We most likely will be selling these to manufacturers if we can become one of their distributors or work with our current distributor. We will be able to convey the differences between the manufacturing processes and benefits and costs of each manufacturer to our clients. We also are going to be, like I said, supporting local renewable energy retailers. And again, our market research provides evidence that our consumers want to support local retailers. Coming soon, our employment equity program. We intend, as we grow, to hire or provide employment for marginalized individuals, such as Aboriginals, Métis, newcomers, youth, students, and ex-offenders. I have identified this need through crowd research in my undergrad, and this is how we can contribute back to our community. My market research, through conducting interviews with potential clients who were rural and agricultural clients, we found that they wanted a specific product focus that provided creative small-scale solar solutions for rural applications, things such as solar-powered heating mechanisms for their watering tanks, solar-powered gates, electric fences for their RVs, and then that'll help us get started as we grow towards residential PV. We also will provide low cost or free consultations, which will allow us to capture new customers. And as I said before, the simple communication and education strategy. Although our consumers are concerned about purchasing from a ethical solar company like ourselves, they don't necessarily want to pay for it. So we devised a high-impact, low-cost social responsibility plan. This is our solar-powered water pump prototype. As you can see here, it uses the water tank as a battery source, so it doesn't necessarily need a battery. The water just is filled up when there's daylight and then pulled out when it's needed. This is one of my partners working on the prototype. We use the Hanwha 250-watt panels, 3 of them, with a Canadian manufactured Grand Foss watering pump, plus some additional components. And so this, again, can be used for agricultural or residential use. Next steps. So in phase 1, we've conducted all the groundwork for the organizational development of this organizational development of this business. We are currently a legitimate business. We're all registered and ready to go. However, we still need to do some more technical training and gain some hands-on experience. That will be with the permanent installation of our water well, or ground solar-powered water pump once we dig a well. And as well, we're working with another local solar company who's going to provide us some hands-on work experience. We also need to do continuous relationship development with our potential clients, and as well with some other stakeholders in the community. I have yet to secure funding for our inventory, so that's a challenge, of course. And as we grow, we'll require outside resources and labor, and then, of course, our official launch. Some lessons learned. So, as remote students, like many of you others who may be working as a distance student, if there was some challenges, I had to develop my own network and connections, whereas if I was in Gunnison, it'd be a lot easier for me to develop that. However, there's a lot of opportunities with being the only master's project in the area. I can pretty much do what I wanted, and there's no other competition from other students. So you guys can come up to Canada if you want. Mentorship. My mentor, although a great choice, I ended up developing a new relationship with my distributor, who has been in the solar industry and was able to give me lots of tips, tricks, and connections with regards to starting a new solar company. So, and actually, now we're going to continue this business relationship from this point forward. So it was a great success and a surprise at the same time. Prototype limitations. Again, I already touched on the financial limitations. The funding I had for this project didn't necessarily allow me to go with the best of the best, so I had to make do. However, again, I acknowledge that limitation, and with our choice of manufacturers, I'll convey that information, as we're going to be a very transparent company to our clients. Data collection and carbon reduction strategy. This was one thing I didn't actually think about doing until within the last 2 months, and yet I feel that it's a great motivator for our clients to understand their impact on the environment. And it was honestly the funnest part of this project, was to be able to do my own calculations and put it on my website and make it easier for everyone. And that's pretty much all I have.
Can you talk a little bit more about the solar scorecard? I think a lot of folks in the room are used to thinking of solar as always already ethical.
Yeah.
Right? And so irresponsible solar is a strange concept. Could you talk about the scorecard a little bit?
Absolutely. So the downstream energy generation, where you're actually producing the energy, is clean for the most part. There's some other considerations like land use and recycling and transportation. But for the most part, that's where all the benefits are. However, in the upstream manufacturing process, you have concerns, and the solar scorecard will convey these concerns in the ranking system. Greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, toxic chemicals, prison labor, conflict minerals, recycling ability, life cycle processing. So these are all considerations that I think consumers don't even realize that they should be considering when implementing solar on their own house.
And what kinds of price differences do you see between, low on the scorecard and really ethical and high on the scorecard?
Well, it could be upwards of between $1 and $2 per kilowatt hour, but I haven't quite narrowed down the pricing for our business. It's one of our next steps. So, yeah, it'll have to be, we want to be reasonable and still consider the limitations of our clients, especially in the Alberta economy right now. It's very rough because of the oil and gas industry not doing so well. So it's kind of a difficult time to start a new business in Alberta. I guess a great time to develop it. Any other questions?
As a follow-up to that, so you chose the hand walk as a prototype. Do you perhaps see a relationship developing where you can perhaps seed a more sustainable panel for Hanwha, or perhaps as a?
It's a good question, and on their website, they do promote their environmentally friendly manufacturing processes, but it's actually not. I can't really impact their processing, but what I can impact is my own distributor. And so by conveying these concerns to him, I hope to motivate him. If I'm not going to become a distributor of one of the higher-ranking manufacturers, then I will try and push him in that direction. He may not even have that information himself at this point, so I think that's my responsibility as a purchaser on my end. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I was just wondering what the scalability options for this project are, like kind of the maximum, like heads of cattle it can support, or like the biggest house, like can it get bigger than what you tested?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, we can get to the point of utility scale, and I've thought one of the ideas that I was thinking as we go through is that I come from a family of developers, and we have the land to be able to potentially develop a utility scale system in our area, but there's a lot of financial limitations on that. For myself, the scale, I think, we want to keep it manageable, and I think that getting just to the residential size and potentially commercial as we grow, I think that is feasible, but no, I don't know if in 5 years if we can get to commercial. I'd like to gain a lot more experience before we get to that point. Go ahead.
Did the recent shift in leadership in Canada have any effect on the outlook for your business?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, it did. Before we had a conservative government, and with the new NEPs coming into power, although this was in the works, they've officially started the decommissioning process of coal power plants. They have also implemented programming through Growing Forward 2, which allocated $50 million towards programs for farmers and rural residents, mostly farmers, to be able to implement solar energy on their properties, as well as other energy efficiency strategies. And as well, they are implementing a carbon tax too, which will inevitably increase the price of electricity in our area, so that'll be another motivating factor. Plus changing political climate, more support for environmental initiatives. I think it's a slow process, but we're moving there. Go ahead.
I think you mentioned that you started working on this before your master's, right? Or you had some.
Oh, well, I didn't mention that. I think that was more Sam, but I can touch on that a little bit.
I was curious because we have a lot of undergrads here, and I'm thinking, okay, even if they're not excited about, even if solar isn't their thing, to me what you did is amazing because you went out on your own and you created this thing out of nothing. And if I were sitting in this seat and I were 20 years old and I were dreaming, hey, one day I want to do my own business in eco-clothing or whatever it is, how do you go from like an understanding that this needs to be done to then you went and did it? What happens at the beginning of that story?
I think you need to utilize your passion. The reason why I made it to this point was because we have an opportunity to build, and so our home is going to be a passive solar home. We already have the land cleared for that. Again, we're just waiting on funding. I initially wanted to get into green construction. I love that topic. However, as I didn't want to be a construction business, but I knew as well we wanted to power our home with solar energy. And then as my family transitioned into solar on this other property, as I showed you, I realized that there was a big market opportunity for this industry here in Central Alberta with limited competitors. And yeah, I just really love learning about solar energy and talking about it. And it's, I think, a great opportunity for our generation to move into. So yeah, start with your passions. You don't know where exactly it'll take you, but and take advantage of opportunities that may be lying in the shadows that you may not have thought of.